Now we are on the 8th session, which is on chemical, biological, radiological and nuclear disasters. This session would be chaired by Dr. Uday Gupte, who is the Joint Director, National Civil Defence College, Nagpur. Each of the speakers, we will be giving 10 minutes to each speaker, which would be followed in the end by a question and answer session. 15 minutes to each speaker, and we have 3 speakers today for this session. We have Dr. Rajesh Kumar, who is Assistant Professor of Political Science, School of Social Sciences, Guru Nanak Dev University, Amritsar. We have Narendra Kumar Tiwari ji from Uttar Pradesh State Development Disaster Management Authority. He's speaking on chemical disaster, and we also have a presentation by the chair. So we'll start with the presentation by the chair. Thank you.
Good afternoon to everybody. I'm from Health Ministry. I was SAG in Central Government Health Scheme, and for the last 5 years I was on deputation at National Civil Defence College. We are conducting various courses for medicals as well as non-medicals, first responders, particularly in the field of disaster management and concerned fields. I have superannuated recently, but still I am associated with National Civil Defence College in organizing and conducting the trainings. So this is my topic, CBRN disasters and preparedness of the country. This regarding actually, I thought Dr. Saurabh had told me to prepare a talk for 45 minutes. Then when I came here, I came to know that it will be 30 minutes. And now it has been reduced to 15 minutes, no, madam? Okay, I'll try to condense it in 15 minutes. It's quite tough, but I'll definitely try sincerely. Impacts of CBRN disasters in in biotic environment, human lives, then crops, they are affected, and it results in death, injuries, and disabilities. In abiotic environment, soil, water, atmosphere, they are polluted, and they have got other effects on the human health. So there are immediate, short-term and long-term effects of CBRN emergencies. We can call them weapons of mass destruction also, but CBRN emergencies is a better term which covers the CBRN accidents also. This is probability and impact. It is very difficult to get the terrorist groups or the WMD groups to get hands on nuclear bombs particularly. But they can definitely obtain nuclear material, then biological agents, chemical agents relatively easily. And you can see from this graph, nuclear weapon, it has got devastating effect, but it is difficult to get, probability is less, whereas nuclear radioactive material, blast material, chemical agents, biological agents, they are relatively easy to procure, and they can have devastating effect on the community, health of the community, health of the individuals. Why worry about biological weapons? First thing, it is very easy to produce them, easy availability, ease to produce them. That is the main factor that leads us to worry about these biological weapons. Then ease of dissemination. It can be easily disseminated. Then it can be disseminated in the aerosol forms so that large number of people can be affected. And the mechanism or technology that is widely available, easily available, so that biological these weapons or biological agents can be procured easily, and they can be disguised as pharmaceutical enterprises. And many countries we are aware they are having biological weapons. These biological agents are stable in extremes of the environment also. Some of the biological agents are quite stable, and they can then they can be stable in rough environment also, and so they can cause large spread effect on the community. About chemical weapons, again technology is easy, it is widely available. Chemical agents can be prepared very easily, and many of it is said that some countries allow the terrorists to use these chemical agents. Many countries are also having these chemical agents, and as you know, they also can have large effect on the community, and they can be very effectively used. About radiological weapons, radiological material, it is likely that the thefts can occur of the radiological material, and they can be used for this weapons of WMD purpose, or in the community they can be used by the enemies. We are aware there are some gaps between the various authorities, legislation, and actual requirement during the disaster. And in the future presentation, we will see how the gaps can be reduced. Mass casualty incidents, there are some facts about it. We are aware that hospitals provide majority of the care in the disaster. 80% of the care is usually provided by the hospitals, because after the disaster, the bystanders and even casualties themselves, they triage themselves, and they straightway run to the hospital. They go directly to the hospital, and another thing, there is some delay in setting up treatment areas, triage areas by the authorities. So by that time, casualties are moved to the hospitals by the bystanders, or walking wounded themselves go to the hospital. Another thing, the closest hospital, it is overwhelmed with the number of walking wounded injuries, and after some time, the seriously wounded casualties reach over there, and then hospital is already busy in treating those walking wounded, and then they are under stress. Mass casualty incident. Mass casualty incident. So we must maximize the use of existing resources. In this overview, we'll consider the information regarding all these matters: preparedness for NCI, then training, command control, and all these aspects. We'll hurriedly go through them. Regarding planning considerations, like other disaster plans, similarly for WMD or weapons of mass destruction or CPRN emergencies, the plans are similar, but some intricacies or some characteristics are to be taken into consideration regarding chemical, biological, or nuclear agents. Some hospitals they do have plans, different plans for uh, usual natural disasters, then external disasters, and then internal disasters in the hospital, and CBRN emergencies. And ultimately, there is lot of confusion when there are three plans in the hospital. It is confusing for the staff uh, to carry out those plans. So it is recommended that a single plan should be prepared for all these emergencies, either external emergencies like CVRN emergencies or natural emergencies or internal emergencies. There can be terrorist attack on the hospital, there can be accident in the hospital, and that also has to be taken care of. So some unified plan, it is recommended, and that can be modified as per the magnitude of the emergency. Preparedness. For this, we have to assess ourselves, either in pre-hospital area or hospital area. This preparedness has to be assessed. For that, realistic drills, practice drills or mock drills, they have to be carried out, and we must assess ourselves that what are our capacities and what are our limitations, and we must conduct the trainings also of the staff, first responders, hospital staff, doctors, all should undergo the training regarding agent recognition. Unfortunately, I am pressing the wrong button every time. Patients transport, then the supply of antidotes, PPE, personal protective equipments, and which PPE, personal protective equipments are to be used in which type of emergency. That also, regarding that matter also, the staff or doctors, they should be clear about that. You must be aware of about this personal protective equipments type of sets. Should I revise them? There are ABCD 4 types of PPE sets which are used during the disasters. A gives full protection, respiratory protection, and skin protection. B gives less skin protection but full respiratory protection. C gives less protection, skin as well as respiratory protection, and D is there is no protection. So depending on the type of disaster, the suit is to be chosen. It is difficult to move or carry out the movements with A type of suit. So we have to be very clear if A type of suit is required or not. Okay. This is regarding readiness phase. We have to rectify whatever deficiencies are there, and we must instruct all the staff and all the doctors regarding this disaster plan. They should be aware, and they should be aware of dry decontamination treatment. Planning phase. We have to plan, and during the planning stage, incorporate all the responsible. There can be some resistance in preparedness, so you have to incorporate all the head of the departments or all the responsible persons, and they can carry out this disaster plan parallel to their own jobs. So that is important. So responsible persons or responsible authorities have to be taken into the confidence, and their help has to be taken. It should be cost effective. You must anticipate the problems. There can be problems regarding communication. There can be failure of all the telephones, all the mobiles during that, and you must have a backup plan for communication. Particularly radio sets, they are quite useful. Walkie-talkies, they should be there. There should be backup lines also should be there. You must consider regarding security and congestion. If there are so many casualties in the casualty, then there is bound to be congestion. So you must provide an alternative area to take care of all the casualties. Then this regarding problems you have to face regarding this during decontamination, information management. During integration, you have to work with all these agencies district disaster management authorities, emergency medical services, law enforcement, fire, police and all. You must have mutual agreements with the surrounding hospitals also. You have to take help of them because at times you may be overwhelmed with the casualties and you have to take help of the other hospitals to take care of all the casualties.
Deterrence policies, right? What you call some other kinds of preemptive first strike, isn't it, etc. Because of all those reasons, this what you call threat for such disasters, it continues to remain there. Of course, so far this issue of nuclear proliferation is concerned, if you go by the reports of International Atomic Energy Agency, close to 500 such instances, cases have been there, where in small or bigger quantity, what you call nuclear material or radiological material or what you call fissile material kind of thing was tried to be smuggled out of countries, places, etc. As late as 1992, 93, when Soviet Union collapsed, and there were smugglers, there were groups, what you call cartels, which tried to smuggle such fissile material out of former Soviet republics to other many parts of the East Europe or Western Europe. Actually. So such possibilities, such threats, they have increased. That too, when world over we have been on daily basis dealing with the idea of menace of global terrorism, etc. This possibility of nuclear terrorism, it cannot be ruled out. Leaders, policymakers, decision makers, they all have been dealing with all such threats at all possible level, global, regional, other levels, etc. Of course, there is again a figure here. If anything were to go wrong between India and Pakistan, close to 30 million people would be severely affected, right? Of course, no such studies have ever been carried out. We need to carry out such studies. If similar kind of war were to occur between India and China, then again, what shall be the number of people who will get affected on account of such threats actually? Scholars were of the view that NDMA must have larger presence of experts, scholars, members from academia, civil society organizations, etc. And it should be least bureaucratized. But the direction in which right now NDMA is moving, it is just reversal of that actually. So I would not dwell upon those things, that in which direction we have been going, right? What are the priorities right now to the part of government? Rather, once again, attempts have been made actually that NDMA gets trivialized, things move on to level of ministry, departments concerned, that's all. Whereas contrary should have happened, NDMA should have been formed as a constitutional body, it should have been given a lot of autonomy, etc. But the kind of commitments which government had made, I think they have gone back from those commitments and all. And the way things are getting managed presently, serious question mark that get raised on so far this structural part of NDMA, or the way these all disaster plans would get executed in case of disasters, especially which are of nuclear nature and all, which will not give any time on part of people to think over actually. And we saw the kind of situation which Japan was faced with, that a highly developed country, highly advanced country of the world, it took a lot of time on their part to manage the entire thing actually. So this slide, it talks about the structural and composition part, etc. The kind of agencies which we had the opportunity to meet many of the people, especially who represent all these bodies, etc. And of course, the chairperson was supposed to chair this session. He himself was supposed to be a member from armed forces, right? So government expects that the large amount of responsibility should be given onto the part of members of armed forces only, and that's why there remains a complete disconnect between members of armed forces and local civilian people actually, isn't it? Sir talked about civil defense, etc. But I am coming from Amritsar. Past 15 years, I haven't seen any mock drill being conducted, right, in order to prepare people, disseminate some sort of information, right, or to involve people in order to meet such eventualities, etc. It is only members of armed forces, as a part of their training and all, they must have been attending all kinds of courses, training, etc. But at least I stayed very close to army cantonment area actually. I haven't seen any interaction between members of armed forces and teachers who are locally available or other people. And fortunately or unfortunately, a state like Punjab, we have seen the role of religious organizations has been always larger in case of handling of disaster-like situations actually, whether it was natural disasters like what you call flood and all, or some other drought-like situations, etc. It is basically religious organizations or charitable organizations which have played a larger role, going by these kind of threats, that is, which are of severe in nature, they certainly will have their own limitations, etc. Yes.
Keeping my question
Yes, during query session, please.
But just to clarify your point, the regular exercises are being done in Punjab also. In Amritsar, in generally every year there is a exercise conducted at the state level where all districts are participating along with the army, along with civil defense.
I'll come to your point, please. At the campus level, because I meet students, right, almost 8,000 students, they are there, right. We do impart them training in case of environment-related subjects and all. We have a lot of pressure to include, prepare a module on disaster management for the sake of university students. That too, we have units of NCC, NSS. We don't find a lot of activism on part of these students, right? And especially this activism could have come from your side actually, those who represent the armed forces, etc. But certainly, practically, we have been facing these kind of things. We can discuss these things slightly later, right? Of course, these are the kind of guidelines which are there to deal with this severe and like emergencies and all. As it was made known to people, these things have been already been discussed by Dr. Gupta in detailed manner. I am moving to last but one slide, that is what kind of necessary steps got taken in aftermath of this accident. You can see here most of the things, it came from again the government side. Especially we have this National Nuclear Power Corporation of India Limited, right, Department of Atomic Energy. They took several steps in order to instill trust on part of public citizens of the country, in order to make sure that nothing to worry about such things in case of our own country. Isn't it, country is all set to handle such disasters if at all they were to occur. Even political people, including the Prime Minister, he was very active in those days. He tried to assure people of the country that yes, there shall not be any reversal so far our nuclear civilian program is concerned, that is generation of electricity, etc. Isn't it? Of course, Parliament was also informed about the necessary steps which got taken. Then finally, some of the lessons which have been there for country like ours, which is faced with a very frequent kind of dilemma, that is at the level of preparation, sometimes we are not that ready as such, isn't it? The reasons can be any number, right? But then we have other dilemma because of security concerns, right? These nuclear issues have become all predominant, isn't it? All kinds of doctrines, etc., they are into place, right? Or sometimes at the policymakers level, certainly that kind of preparation is there, that given the chance, will not hesitate from making use of such things, etc. On the other side, again, smaller things, a small train accident, right? Our preparation, it gets exposed, right? Uttarakhand tragedy, Kashmir tragedy, of course, members of armed forces, they must have done wonderful job there. Still, there have been occasions when our preparations, they got exposed badly actually. It would not have been very right on part of country of our size, capacity, etc., that we get caught on smaller things, not having ability of instruments, basic appliances, etc. And then media people showing a person that morning he was alive, by the time evening, focus of the media remained there only and that person is no more there. This is the kind of things which got exposed for the world media actually. So, or when one small child were to fall in where that hole which gets dug, and whole day the entire country remains busy getting that child lifted out of that, and many times we don't succeed in that. So that way it raises a lot of apprehensions, worries in the minds of teachers like us, right? Or when we try to discuss these subjects with our students actually. So for these lessons are concerned, we have seen that the kind of things which happened in case of Japan, deaths, destructions, displacements, damages, etc., isn't it? Then several reports got prepared actually, right? They did point in this direction that there remain number of flaws on part of people there in case of Japan also. So most advanced country committing similar mistakes which is expected out of a developing country like ours actually. So when it comes to a question of nuclear disaster, there is not much difference whether how the most advanced countries would react and how country like ours would respond to such situations, though it remains a hypothetical kind of scenario actually, right? There have been a number of commitments by leaders at the world level in which our leaders are also involved, and very serious exercises have been going on at international level to not only get rid of biological weapons, because we have certain international instruments which are into place like Biological Weapons Convention, Chemical Weapons Convention, but again leaders of the world, they have been struggling very hard to get this Nuclear Weapons Convention put into place. So if that were to be put into place, certain appropriate steps would get taken and cooperation at the international level would get mobilized actually, and things might change. Of course, the proliferation concerns, the concerns regarding nuclear terrorism, etc., they might get reduced. I don't say that they will be completely over actually, or they can be overcome. So these are again some of the things they are there so far learning of lessons are concerned. To conclude, we can see here big gaps between union government and state governments, right? Only 16 to 18 states, they could set up their own state level disaster management bodies actually, authorities, right? It is not only a question of setting up SDMS, it is also a question of setting up similar kind of authorities at the district level. Then discussions took place yesterday that similar kind of authorities must be set up at village level. So how much time we would be needing? Can we, are we sure that we will prevent such disasters of nuclear nature not to occur, because our preparation is not into place actually, isn't it? So lot of gap. Morning, just before afternoon session, when Dr. Haq was chairing the session actually, he talked a lot about some very important laws pertaining to public health management and all is into offing. But I was about to remind him that similar kind of attempt got made earlier when UPA government was there to bring all medical institutions under one overarching body actually. How fight got started between different ministries, different departments, that no, how our discretionary power would get compromised, and they were not ready to give up their powers actually. So when at the union government level, different ministries, different departments, they are not ready to give up their powers, can we think that state governments, they will coordinate with central agencies or vice versa actually? Isn't it? Or we have seen that the number of laws which are hanging actually, isn't it not getting passed with the parliament because of the differences which are there onto the part of political bosses, political masters, isn't it? So this was all about my presentation actually. Thank you so much for having listened to me. I'd be happy if there are queries. I'll certainly try to answer those queries. Thank you so much, Mr. Chairperson.
And the topic is what is the chemicals, and all of you well known about the chemicals, and there is written about the chemicals, and in last there is a main important point. There are no safe chemicals, only safe way of using chemicals. Chemicals are no safe for us, and they can affect to us about gas leakage.